Any questions from the board?
Is everything in order?
Yes, ma'am.
So do they have a certificate of occupancy yet?
When they change ownership, the guys will just go out and just make sure everything's in order, but once.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very basic
Okay,
walkthrough.
all right.
Have we had any issues in the past
No.
with this location? Any other questions?
I have none.
I move to approve
Second?
off-presence beer permit for Ayush, is that how you say it?
Ayush Corporation.
Corporation,
Yes.
11104 Kingston Pike.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Is there any further business for the beer board? If not, we are adjourned.
And that means now it's time for the Farragut Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for June 9th, 2016. I'll start by rising for a moment of silent prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. First item on the agenda is to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as written.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item is the mayor's report, and this is going to be one of those fun times when we give away awards, beautification awards to be exact. So what's the procedure?
I'm sorry?
Call them out?
I believe one of the members of the beautification committee is going to.
Mayor, we're going to show the slides first, and then we'll hand out the awards. Do I?
Good evening. I am Betty Scott, and I am the chair of the Farragut Beautification Committee. Tonight, I am pleased to present the 33rd Town of Farragut Beautification Awards. The following criteria were used in evaluating the various developments located within the town of Farragut: landscape design, selection of plant material, maintenance, first impressions, and last impressions. The Beautification Committee has chosen 7 winners in 2016. We will show a short presentation of all the winners, and then we will ask each of them to come to the front individually for the award presentation with Mayor McGill. In the category of commercial office building, the winner is Village Veterinary Medical Center, located at 11301 Kingston Pike. In the category of retail building, the winner is Cracker Barrel, located at 716 Campbell Station Road. In the category of residential entrance, the winner is Derby Chase Subdivision, located at Derby Chase Boulevard. In the category of religious institution, the winner is First Baptist Church, located at 11704 Kingston Pike. In the category of retail commercial complex, the winner is West End Center, located at West End Avenue. In the category of multi-family residential complex, the winner is Clarity Point, located at 901 Concord Road. Our new category, Hotel Motel, the winner is Hampton Inn and Suites, located at 11340 Campbell Lakes Drive.
I'll try.
Okay. Accepting the award for the Village Veterinary Medical Center is Dr. Christy Lively. Accepting the award for Cracker Barrel is Ann Smith, Retail Manager. Okay. Accepting the award for Derby Chase Subdivision is Greg Montgomery, HOA President, and Jim Anderson, former HOA President. Accepting the award for First Baptist Concord, Amy Barnett, Campus Operations Manager. Accepting the award for West End Center is Sam Mishu, President of M&M Development. No? Okay. Accepting the award for Clarity Point is Tom Overton, Maintenance Director. Accepting the award for Hampton Inn and Suites is Anthony Galloway, Assistant General Manager. Congratulations once again to this year's Beautification Award recipients.
That's right. And Mayor, I also have the National League of Cities proclamation to read as well.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Whereas small cities and towns under 50,000 in population are the home to millions of Americans and constitute a vast majority of municipalities across the United States, and whereas small cities and towns strive to strengthen their communities through the provision of service and programs to improve the quality of life for all citizens, and whereas the federal government is an essential partner in the success of small cities and towns and must be encouraged to continue and support the programs and legislation that strengthen small communities. Whereas state governments are partners in the success of small cities and towns and must also be encouraged to continue to support key programs and legislation that also strengthen the communities. Whereas organizations, businesses, and citizens are partners in the success of small cities and towns and must be encouraged to continue to grow their efforts to make small communities a viable choice for people to live in. And whereas the need for a renewed intergovernmental partnership to support essential public services is more important than ever to ensure the safety and growth of small-town America. And whereas the National League of Cities President and Small Cities Council of the National League of Cities has declared June 2016 as Small Cities Month. Now, therefore, Ralph McGill, Mayor of the Town of Farragut, does hereby proclaim June 2016 as Small Cities Month and encourages President Obama, Congress, state governments, organizations, businesses, and all citizens to recognize this event and to work together on this day and month and throughout the year to invest in small cities and towns to better the lives of all citizens.
Thank you. Citizens Forum, what do we?
Our first speaker is David Purvis.
5 minutes.
What are y'all laughing at? I'm David Purvis, live at 605 Warrendale Drive. I just want to give you all a little bit of information, update on what we're seeing happening or potentially happening with the wine and grocery stores legislation that passed. It's supposed to go effective July 1, where grocery stores can start to sell wine. I don't know if everybody understands how the liquor tax work in town, but 5% of all the purchases by the 5 existing liquor and wine stores are paid to the town. So 5% of our purchases go into the town's coffers, which is probably around $1 million a year. Now we're going to see at minimum 5 grocery stores adding wine, as well as Weigel's and Pilot. So what we're going to see is probably an increase in tax collections as those stores front load with the product, meaning they're starting to build their inventory up. You're going to see probably started in May, particularly heavy in June, and they'll be probably fairly heavy in July. But after that, what we're starting to realize is we're talking about just in the town of Farragut. Now, from this point forward, grocery stores in Knox County, Loudoun County, Lenore City, and everywhere across the state can start to sell wine. Potentially, what we're looking at is potential loss of revenue because you've got more convenient places to buy. We get on Wednesdays are a heavy day for all the stores now because everybody from Tellico Village drives down here to the most convenient place to buy their alcohol. Well, they're going to have points, a lot of points between here and there now from this point forward that they can buy. What I think everybody saw was, oh, it's a net win because there's going to be more alcohol sold, more consumption. Net effect long term, consumption shouldn't increase but by 2 to 3%. But on top of that, 2 to 3% increase in consumption over a larger market, we're going to see bleed off into the Loudoun County, Knox County. And we've talked, I've been talking with several municipalities. They don't have a tax structure in place to collect that revenue. Those stores are going to have a 5 to 8% price advantage over the stores here in Farragut. They have no legal remedy at this time to get those taxes. They want to do it. They want to collect it, but it's up to the legislature to give them authority to do that tax. The way we have that tax imposed is we did a referendum to allow liquor stores, and along with that came an inspection fee of 5% that's added to the purchases. They have no ability to do that right now until something's done, potentially the next legislative session. So I just want to bring it to your attention that there's a potential loss of revenue to the town as a result of this, and was not foreseen, I don't think, by anybody, the state level, anywhere, until we started getting into the details of what was happening. I started getting emails going, you know, these stores are getting, going to get wine, and they don't have to pay the inspection fees that we charge or Knoxville City charges. So, and by the way, previously, the only municipalities could have liquor stores or wine sales. Now it's statewide. Anybody that's had a referendum says we want to let you have wine in grocery stores, they can have it. So we just have to keep an eye and see what happens to our tax collections over time and see if it has a negative budgetary impact on us. So just want to share that with you. Thank
David, are the grocery stores are paying the same tax rate that you guys are paying, correct?
The ones, yeah, the ones in Knoxville and
Okay.
Farragut. The ones in Knox County do not. You see, there's never been wine or liquor sold in the county. The counties were not allowed to have liquor stores. So this sort of bypassed the whole previous legislative process of how the referendums worked and allowed alcohol sales to occur. So by state law, it was previously, there was one town somewhere in Middle Tennessee that was the minimum size you could be to have liquor sales. And I don't know how they chose that town, but there's a population level that would allow you to have a referendum. So
Thank you for the
Thank you.
information.
Before we go on, I want to back up and say some words about the beautification. You saw the awards, but what you don't see is what these ladies do to come up with those awards. And if one of you would like to, I'd like for you to tell us how you go through the process and how grueling it is. Somebody. You're in charge. Go ahead.
You can do it, Betty.
Tell us how you do it, how you come to to your conclusions?
Pardon?
How do you come to your recommendations?
We all went on the tour to pick the winners out. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, we went on the tour and we wrote down which we liked. And then when we got back here, then we all voted on it, who we liked.
And that's a long day, isn't it?
It was about 3 hours. Somewhere around that, I think.
Anyway, year after year, you guys do a good job, and I just want to say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for everything else you do to beautify our town. We are most grateful.
Next item is Citizens Forum.
We only
Oh,
have,
we
we have
have-
one other speaker, but it's for an agenda item, so we'll have that speaker when we get to that item.
Mayor, I do have one item. I've received a letter from Mr. R.K. Greenwell. Is he here today? Okay. He had asked, this letter apparently came out on February 25th and was addressed to the board. I never saw it, and then I received a copy of it. It was forwarded to me from the town, from Allison, on May the 10th of this year. And I'd just like to, I called this constituent up. Did you all receive this letter from Mr. Greenwell?
Call it.
I thought he was planning on coming to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen at some point to discuss what was going on.
Yeah, I spoke with him on the phone and told him I would get this letter on the agenda or that we would discuss it today. So if, with your permission, I'd like to read this letter. It's pretty short. It's really interesting. He says, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the town of Farragut is fortunately located near the merger of the pathways of two major interstate highways, I-75 and I-40. Interstate I-75 goes from the tip of Florida to the tip of Michigan. I-40 goes from California to near the coast of North Carolina. This results in thousands of people passing the edge of Farragut every day. And I think, to clarify that, they don't go through the edge. They go through the middle of Farragut every day, and I think it's 57,000 trips a day, something like that. Farragut has a lot to offer passing travelers, including historical items of interest, very nice hotels and motels, outstanding and varied shopping, a wide variety of restaurants and fine dining, as well as gas stations, numerous parks and walking trails, easy access to the river and waterfront, a number of major supermarkets, as well as one of the best antique malls in East Tennessee within a block or so of the interstate. There are a lot of services and amenities for a traveler packed into an attractive, easily accessible area of Farragut that are not normally found in a community this size. It is suggested that the town of Farragut promote itself and its many quality features by tastefully advertising on billboards on each side of the interstates. An ideal location for a single billboard would capture attention from both interstate highways, would be between interstate merger location located west of Farragut near Watt Road and the truck weigh station. If this were not available, the next most desirable location would be northbound on I-75 at or north of Sweetwater, Tennessee, and then on I-40 near or somewhat west of Lenoir City exit. The billboards would, of course, need to be prominently show at exit 373 and should reflect quality. It would not take a full-size billboard to get across the attributes of Farragut and could be as simple as visit the town of Farragut for historical interest, fine dining, hotels and motels, quality shopping, auto services, parks and recreation, and antiques at exit 373. If there are public golf courses, this could also be mentioned. The billboard could feature some sort of graphic depicting a Civil War battle, could refer to historical aspects of the Farragut area. The interstates to the south and west of Farragut would be preferred locations of billboards, as Farragut is the first major stop after Lenoir City and Kingston. With much more to offer, travelers going west past Farragut will have already had many opportunities to stop earlier at various exits for services in Knoxville, and thus billboards east of Farragut would not be as effective. If a full-size billboard is all that is available, then possibly the size billboard and cost could be shared with a listing of various companies and attractions in Farragut, such as Turkey Creek Shopping, major motel names, gas stations, restaurants, etc. These companies could also include their logos to gain more visibility and provide name recognition. These would, no doubt, bring more travelers into Farragut, greatly helping business and increasing sales tax revenues to the town of Farragut. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen are strongly encouraged to investigate and consider promoting the town of Farragut on billboards on the interstate. I look forward to your response. R.K. Greenwell, who lives in Ridgeland Subdivision. I think he makes a very important point, and we're looking at losing revenue possibly from wine sales, from the loss of the hall income tax, and we have major road needs in town, and I think it's something we should look at seriously. So put that out there for your consideration.
I'm sorry, Bob, I had confused that one with the one about the noise ordinance. I responded to him, I spoke to him when I went to their HOA meeting.
Right, he told me you did.
And I agree with you that that's something, I think it's something we need to look at in an overall, I know the FBA has talked about this from a tourism. It might be time to start investigating that. I think that it should be expanded. Actually, you hit Farragut by 3 exits: Watt Road, Campbell Station, and Lovell. So then they are all access points for Farragut. Of course, obviously, Campbell Station is the one that puts you right in the heart of Farragut. So I think he has some very valid points to make, and I think that should be considered in an overall.
Economic development.
Yes.
I had spoken in our visioning sessions about the town owns about 1,000 feet, a quarter mile of interstate frontage on the Fretz roads at our Public Works Department. Isn't that right, Bud? How much land do we have up there?
We have about 11 acres up there on the interstate.
And I had suggested that we put a reader board up there, but this is really interesting in that if we put it out beyond Lenore City, we've got so much more to offer people coming down the interstate. Hundreds of hotel rooms in every price range, fuel, dozens of fine restaurants, great shopping, and this is a real resource that we're not tapping. And I think there's a lot of potential for this, and something we need to look at.
I agree. I think that letter should be shared with the EDC at their next meeting. Bring it up for discussion there.
Put that down. That's all I have.
We had no more citizens forum. Okay. Approval of minutes of May 26th.
I'll move for approval of the minutes from May 26 as written.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Was absent?
All right. Now we move to business items, and there's a bunch of them. First one is approval of contract 2016-10, installation of traffic signal at the intersection of Kingston Pike at Virtue Road.
Yes, you'll recall that back last year, the board awarded contract Cannon & Cannon to do a signal warrant analysis at the intersection of Kingston Pike and Virtue Road. They found, as expected, that it does meet warrants according to the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and we requested that TDOT permit us to install a traffic signal at that location. TDOT has agreed with that, and plans have been finalized. We opened bids on May 24th for installation of a traffic signal. We received 3 bids. Davis H. Elliott Company Incorporated bid $166,800. Stansel Electric bid $176,392.40. And Progression Electric bid $170,005.38. We have not worked with Davis H. Elliott in the recent past, but we're aware of them. They are a TDOT pre-qualified contractor, and staff recommends award of contract 2016-10 to Davis H. Elliott Company.
Any discussion on that?
How many, I know I looked in this, is there 3 arms? There'll be 3?
Should be 3 poles. I believe that's correct.
3 what? I didn't.
Yeah, 1 arm at
Poles.
55 feet and 2 arms at 75 feet, and I guess that's what those are. I have a question, it's just a general question. When you read through these bids, there's wild swings between each of them. I know that it comes out in the, it seems to kind of, like this. Here's $8,000 and they're saying $5,000 for
Right.
mobilization. Do you see that in contracts all the time?
Yes, sometimes on mobilization, they will load it on the front end a
Okay.
little heavier than another one will.
Okay,
But typically with the line items like, this item, signal cable, 7 conductor, I'm guessing here, 1,700, 2,200, 17.
okay. So there's certain things that they
Right.
kind of load in a little, okay.
Mobilization is one that, they're paid on the front end of the contract when they show up and go to work.
Okay,
And,
Gas and donuts to get there.
pardon me?
Gas and donuts to get there and
That's
get
right.
set up.
a lot of gas and donuts then, yeah. Okay. I was
Daryl,
just
once
curious.
we award them this contract, how soon do you think they can start?
I would hope immediately, but the fact is, on these signals projects like this, there's a long lead time for when they order the signal poles and mast arms. I think that's probably the longest lead time. It can be several weeks. I've seen 16, 18 weeks even. So our contract, the completion date is December 9th of this year. I'd like to see that done quicker than that, but we want to leave them plenty of time to get it installed. Once you see activity going on, it will happen pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Next one is approval of contract.
Oh, we have to vote on it.
Oh, yeah, we have to vote, don't we?
Oh, I have one more question. When they start installing it, will they have to, that intersection will be impacted not so much, or?
Probably not so much. I mean, it'll still be a stop-controlled intersection, and we'll just see the mast arms go up, and then the
Okay.
equipment will go up. It
Okay.
shouldn't be too much disruption.
All right.
Right.
So now we need
Move to approval of bid for contract 2016-10, traffic signal installation at intersection of Kingston Pike at Virtue Road.
I'll second it.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next one is approval of contract 2017-01, annual on-call road maintenance.
Yes, these next 4 items, 2017-01 through 04, are all annual contracts that we approve every year. It's to be able to obtain unit prices for maintenance of various items. The first one is the road maintenance, and then we have pavement markings, guardrail maintenance, and signal maintenance. Now, in the tabulation that you'll see in each of the next 4 memos, you won't see a bottom line total price. The fact is, we don't know what we're going to need to be able to maintain over the next year for each of these items. So the idea is to get competitively bid unit prices. This first one is 2017-01, the annual road maintenance contract. We received 2 proposals on May 24th from PRI of East Tennessee and J.G. Mullins Construction Company. And based on the unit prices that they provided, which were tabulated in your memo, based on that, as well as the responsiveness, town staff recommends award of contract 2017-01 to PRI of East Tennessee Incorporated.
Do we know these people, Darrell?
Pardon me?
Do we know these people?
Yes, they've actually had our contract, I want to say, the last couple of years.
So when you have the budget, it's budgeted for $65,000. That's based off of past years?
That's just
estimated?
based off
Okay.
past year's estimates.
It could be a little more, it could be. a little
Sometimes we
less.
have to move a little money into that.
Okay.
Just depends on what happens
Okay.
by the end of the year.
I move to approve contract 2017-01, annual road maintenance.
I'll
Second.
Oh, you second it this time.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next one is approval of contract 2017-02, annual on-call pavement markings.
Yes, as I said, this is an annual on-call project. We received 2 bids from contractors on May 24th, Volunteer Highway Supply and Highway Markings Incorporated, and the tabulation was included in your memo. Based on their tabulation as well as their responsiveness, staff recommends award of this contract to Volunteer Highway Supply Company Incorporated.
Now, have they done work for us before?
They have. Actually, I think they've probably had the pavement marking contract for the last 7 or 8 years.
Then I'll make approval of the bid and award it to the contract 2017-02 to Volunteer Highway Supply Company.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next one is approval of contract 2017-03, annual on-call guardrail maintenance.
This is one that we don't have to use very often, but certainly comes in handy if there's an accident and guardrail is damaged in the town, especially if there's no traffic report to go after someone's insurance company if they've damaged a piece of guardrail. We received 2 proposals on May 24th, Roadway Solutions LLC and Highway Markings Incorporated. That tabulation was included in your packet, and staff recommends award of contract 2017-03 to Roadway Solutions LLC.
Do you guys have a routine that you go around to just inspect the guardrails? Is that?
Not typically, but it's one of those things. If someone gets into it, we usually hear about it pretty
Okay.
quickly,
All right.
and we'll get our contractor out there.
So is this what we normally spend per year, about 15,000?
It normally about 15,000 will cover everything that we need for a fiscal year. Sometimes, I want to say this year, I think we've spent about $4,000. If, like I mentioned, if there is an accident and there's an accident report, we can turn in the damages on someone's insurance.
Get reimbursed.
And be reimbursed. But just in case, I mean, occasionally somebody will get into the guardrail and go on home. So there's no report.
I'll move for approval of bids and award of contract 2017-03 to Roadway Solutions LLC.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next one is approval of contract 2017-04, annual on-call signal maintenance.
Yes, this is the last of the engineering's maintenance contract, so the annual signal maintenance contract. We received only 1 proposal this year. It's because there's just about only 1 game in town, but that was from Progression Electric LLC. I've attached the tabulation of their prices for this year and compared it with last year's unit prices as well. For the most part, their prices, a lot of them have stayed the same as last year. A few of them have gone up some. But we have an excellent working relationship with Progression Electric, and staff recommends award of this contract 2017-04, to Progression Electric LLC.
Hey, Darrell, quick question about this and the prior one also. What happens, this is by unit price per occurrence pretty much. How does this work? Do they get paid this just for being on call, or is this paid by unit price per occurrence? Or?
It's per occurrence. If we hear that a signal is malfunctioning, typically we'll get a call from like the sheriff's department. We'll have one of my staff go out, Greg Norman will typically go out and take a look at it and determine if it's something that can wait a few hours, it's not quite as much an emergency, or he'll make a decision whether he needs to get someone out immediately. If it's 3 in the morning and it's a serious problem, they will respond immediately. So they have different prices based on whether they have to come out at 9 o'clock in the morning or come out at 3 o'clock in the morning.
So do we typically spend the whole amount, or do we just roll over into the next year's budget?
Been pretty expensive the last few years, and yes, we will typically spend about all of that.
Okay.
Well, the grant with the synchronization, is that going to include some updating or?
That will include a little bit of hardware. I will say that we have turned in a request for another CMAQ grant that would replace a lot of the hardware and could drop this maintenance cost significantly. That's what we're hoping. It's a little early to tell you much about that. We're going to be submitting that grant. We've turned in a letter of interest on it, but that grant will be going out sometime in July.
Right. I move to approve bids and award of contract 2017-04 to Progression Electric LLC.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next one is approval of bids for contract 2017-06 HVAC maintenance contract.
Good evening. This agenda item is for bids for our HVAC maintenance here at the town hall. That's all the air conditioning, heating systems. It is a 3-year contract, renewable each for each year. We received bids on this from, just trying to remember how many companies I've got here listed. 3 companies, and the low bid on this was Del Air Mechanical. Their first year was $13,956. We checked the references and everything checked out with them. They are a pretty good sized company that takes care of units at commercial businesses. This contract is all inclusive, and by that 24/7, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. They'll come out at no extra charge. They'll fix a unit, repair a unit, or replace a unit. And we've had this contract going in that manner for, I'm going to say, the last 12 to 15 years is how it's been set up. And that way the town has a specific budget amount, and it doesn't make any difference if every unit in this entire building went down, they would replace it for this cost, for this amount. So, and we've had prior contractors that have had to replace entire units before, but this just covers us, so there's no surprises through the year.
I'm curious, how many units do we have? How many units do we have in this building?
I think it's 11
Really?
total, yeah.
You are replacing those units, right? Didn't we just pass a contract just recently to replace the HVAC system?
Yes, ma'am. In the budget coming up that y'all will be voting on this evening is a CIP project to replace the original 10 train units. They're actually tandem units. It serves 5 areas, but there's 2 units tied together.
Okay.
And then 1 condensing unit.
So that would probably make this contract, obviously it doesn't impact it because it's second year and third year, but we don't foresee having issues going forward once we have new units.
We shouldn't have with those units, but they still come in, take care of cleaning all the coils, they replace the filters every quarter, do the maintenance on them, and that's the reason we've gotten 25 years out of the train units we have right now.
Okay.
Is because, I mean, they are checked all the time. And so it's up to them. It puts the burden on them to make sure that these units are in tip-top condition coming into heating season, coming into air conditioning season. Okay. And so we've had a couple of contractors prior to this one, two different ones, and both of them have done an outstanding job taking care of this.
Did they put in a bid?
Yes, they did.
The companies we've had
Interstate
before?
Interstate Mechanical. It's the middle
Oh, okay.
middle of the road, and it's just surprising. Last year, Interstate Mechanical, their third year was $8,700. So their price has doubled. So, but they're all fairly competitive prices in there. There wasn't.
But we have references on this Del Air, and we know that they're a reliable company and
Yep.
all that, since
And-
this will be the first time we've used them.
Yes, and I've had conversations with their company to make sure that they understand, because we've had people come in and say, oh, that's an added charge. The only thing that's an added charge is an act of God. So hail, lightning, and this past year we actually had vandalism. So we had to.
But we're covered under insurance for
Yes.
that. Then if there are no other comments, I'll make approval of the award to contract 2017-06 to Del Air Mechanical Contractors. for
Second. Oh, sorry.
The price of $42,300 for 36 months.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next one is approval of bids for contract 2017-07 street sweeping contract.
This, again, is a 3-year contract, and what we do is, in this contract is, any curb and gutter type street that we have on a main thoroughfare through Farragut, they go through and they sweep and vacuum once a month. And then all of our parking lots, which includes Town Hall, Public Works, and all of our parks, they go through 5 times a year and do a vacuum and sweep in those areas. We got 2 bids on this, and the low bid was with Husky Vac, and for the first year's $23,850, and their hourly cost is really good, and that's used in an emergency situation. Maybe we got a lot of gravel on the road, maybe mud, debris of some kind. He will come out on an all-call basis for $75 an hour. So we've had Husky Vac in place for the last 9 years, about 9 years now we've been using him. So he's really good. He'll do anything we ask him to do, and he's always prompt on time. He sweeps at the first of the month. We had some issues with traffic on Grigsby Chapel Road after we put the islands in, and so he adjusted his schedule to take care of that. And so he's very workable in what we need, and the town would like to, or staff would like to recommend awarding this contract to Husky Vac for the first year of $23,850.
How much how often do they do the main thoroughfares? I'm sorry, I know you said
Once
that.
a month.
Once a month.
Yeah, so 12 times a year.
If there are no other comments, then I'll make approval of the bid of contract 2017-07 to Husky Vac of Kodak for $23,850.
I'll second it.
Favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work you guys do.
Next one is approval of reimbursement for road repairs to Long Ridge Road.
Yes, back in April, staff was made aware of a situation. First Utility District had a water line under Long Ridge Road in the Saddle Ridge subdivision that had a pretty significant leak. I think I would just call it a break. It created a lot of damage on Long Ridge Road. Essentially, it kind of floated the asphalt for about 700 feet down Long Ridge Road. The only way to correct the problem, to correct all of the, I don't know what you would call it, waffles, it was a mess. Undulations, that's a good word. The only way to correct that was to simply replace all of the asphalt where we could take a look at the base stone underneath, replace anything, because it had washed out some of the base stone. As luck would have it, we had just opened bids on our resurfacing contract that week. So if it's going to happen, it was good timing. We had competitive bids, and we were able to ask our resurfacing contractor to add that to their contract and move into the site pretty quickly. So they were able to come in within a couple of weeks and make all of the repairs on that. That had a total cost of $40,026.44. We have submitted that to the First Utility District's insurance company, and they have forwarded the attached release of claims form, which I think Tom Hale has reviewed. Staff is okay with it. We feel like all of the repairs have been done in accordance with our requirements. So town staff recommends approval of the settlement agreement and release of claims from First Utility District.
Carol, have you been back up there to see if everything's still
I have, yeah. It does look good.
okay?
Now you can see it on the overhead there. It's about 700 feet and extended all the way down the hill.
It's pretty bad. I drove it, and it was really bad.
I'm sure it would have been something to see when the water was squirting out of the asphalt.
Yeah. Well, I move for approval of settlement agreement and release of claims from First Utility District.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item is approval of memorandum of understanding between the town of Farragut and the Farragut Business Alliance.
Thank you, Mayor. Back in 2009, the FBA was formed as a nonprofit 501c6 organization whose primary mission was to help promote business in the town of Farragut. Since that time, the FBA has held several community events and has also been leading the marketing of the Shop Farragut holiday campaign between November and December of each year. The Economic Development Committee and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen previously reviewed an MOU back in February of this year that had the FBA being in charge of the branding for the town of Farragut. After several public forums, the BMA decided to have town staff implement the branding strategy, thus leaving the FBA to provide similar business services as they have over the past 5 years, but with an increased focus on the Shop Farragut campaign to be more of a year-round campaign rather than just a holiday campaign. The attached MOU outlines the economic development initiatives the FBA will be responsible to provide for the town. It includes their program of work, which will include promoting Farragut's businesses, retaining existing business, and recruiting new businesses to the town. The FBA board did vote to eliminate the Red, White, and Blues Festival as an event, as one of their major events, and instead look to do two different community-type events in different business centers here along the Kingston Pike corridor. This agreement also allows the town to terminate this agreement at any time during the term. Due to these additional responsibilities and marketing enhancements for the Shop Farragut program, the FBA is requesting an increase in funding from the town to $70,000 for this one-year agreement. The FBA has given a proposed budget, which is included in your packet. It shows how these additional funds would be used. We did take this to the Economic Development Committee, and they met on May 4th and recommended approval of the MOU to the BMA by a vote of 5-0 and 2 abstentions. I know Mr. Purvis, the president of the FBA, is here. I know Ms. Sousa, the executive director, and Ms. Bertle, one of the FBA board members, are here as well. Certainly, if you have any questions for them.
I'm David Purvis, live at 605 Werndl, service president at Farragut Business Alliance at this current time. Do you all have any questions of me or anything that you'd like for me to go over?
I'm just going to state that I'm going to recuse myself. I don't legally have to because I have an indirect conflict of interest in this, but because I feel ethically, I feel compelled to. So I will be recusing myself, but that does not, please do not mistake that for my lack of support for the Farragut Business Alliance. I believe they are on a very good track to do what needs to be done to improve the business community relationships and encourage more business in our town. I think they're really on a good path right now.
I just want to add that Louise had done a presentation during the EDC and during the workshop at a previous board meeting. We were discussing the economic fiber of Farragut, where our income comes from, how it's derived, and we are greatly dependent upon sales tax revenue. I think 68% of our last year's budget was sales tax revenue, and I think it's probably higher than that now. We're seeing a loss of the hall income tax over the next several years. There's some budgetary constraints going on, particularly with the road improvements contracts. They're estimating $51 million in road improvements. At the current CIP funding level, that would probably take 22, 23 years to do. We've got the stormwater drain improvements. The number still has yet to be ascertained, I believe. And we also have commitments on the parks to keep them maintained under some of the grant dollars we've gotten. So we've got a big push on our capital improvements projects budget to fund what the town needs to keep its infrastructure in good shape. I don't know how we can do that in the current budget because the cycle for road improvements is probably too long, in my opinion. But we also are a community dependent upon outside non-residents to come and spend their money in our town. By the surveys I've done with some businesses who run loyalty programs, I personally estimate only about 20 to 30% of our sales tax dollars comes from residents. That means the balance has to come from outside. So we're fortunate to have a good business community here. We're fortunate to have some big stores, Costco, that we've gotten over the last few years. We need those sales tax dollars, and we need to increase it. We need to increase that, or we're going to have to look at an alternative funding mechanism to be able to fund the improvements we need to make. By my estimate, I think we, in order to shorten that $51 million road improvement project to, say, 12 years or 13 years, we'd have to increase our sales within Farragut by $174 million. That's a 34% increase over the current sales that we have. We've been fortunate that we've grown our sales tax base significantly, double-digit growth in multiple years, but that seems to be flattening out right now. But we've got some real assets here. We've got a great community. We've got great residents. We've got a community that's working together to try to find development that's reasonable in the right place. We've got an asset on the other side of the interstate that doesn't seem to affect as many people. People don't even realize that we have that property in the town of Farragut, that if we start to develop there and draw some activity, that it could materially fund our budget. So I just want to say that FBA is involved in those discussions and has knowledge about what needs to be done and what the numbers look like and can help make an effect on that. We can't do it all ourselves. It's going to take all of us to do this. But it is a significant effort. We've been participating in going to the ICSC convention, Recon in Vegas, which we just got back from a couple weeks ago, and seeing people really coming to the table now, local people saying, hey, we want to talk about doing business in Farragut. And it's always been sort of a hands-off because they always thought we were hard to do business with. But we've worked real hard to communicate with them. If you come to the table on the front end and talk with us, it's not the easiest place, it's not the cheapest place to do business, but there's a reasonable way to get it done. And we're having conversations, there's meetings going on over the next couple of weeks over a couple of different things. But it's in collaboration with the business community and the town and the leaders of the town. So that's all I've got to say. Anybody, any other?
I wanted to ask you, the vote was 5-2. Can you give me any reasons why the two voted against it?
One of them is a board member. It's a chairman of the EDC and a board member of FBA. They abstained. Yeah, they abstained from it. Yeah, Phil Dangle abstained because he was he's a president of that board and is also on our board. The other one, I'm not sure. She never stated why. She just abstained.
No, I just wondered, just curious why there were two votes against it.
Mayor, I also have one citizen that signed up to speak, and it's John Nels, and he's here beside me.
All right.
Did I get it? Yeah. I'll slide it.
Okay, I'll sit at this.
Sit at the table.
If we want this alternative funding, we've got all these thousands of people from out of town coming through Farragut. Why don't we hire a constable, shoot radar? We could probably get some revenue that way. One of the things at the MOU I'm actually disturbed with, and I'm against it. And let me explain why. As it's written, I should say. I'm not necessarily against all funding for FBA, but there's a couple of things in it. One, first of all, talking about $70,000, the town's take on sales is 1 1/8%. So that takes $6.25 million over and above not voting for this MOU just to pay for it. So I've looked at some of the metrics in there about driving people to the website and some things like that, but I don't see $6.25 million in increased revenue in sales to generate to pay for this MOU. That's one point. The other is, my understanding is within that $70,000 is about $40,000 for a salary. Is that correct?
Yes, that contract labor.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's the real hang-up I have, because it says in there that this would be an independent contractor not subject to the town in any way. This is town's money we're talking about. This is our money. Are we just going to give it to somebody as a salary and not have any accountability over that? That's my problem. So what I would ask is, if you're going to vote to fund this, that you amend the MOU to say that either no funds, town funds go to direct wages or salary that's not reportable to town, or either have that poor person reportable to the town. So I think to be good stewards of the town's money, I think that would be a wise decision. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I would like to address that a little bit. It's not tied directly to $70,000. Our total budget for the next year is $130,000. We're deriving $25,000 out of event income, another $35,000 out of sponsorships by some of the major businesses. So then the town is the balancing $70,000. So they're not necessarily correlated directly, and we are accountable because under the MOU, that person who's working under the direction of the board, and the board has the mayor sitting on the board as well as David Smoke, and Gary Palmer participates as well. So there's town staff is monitoring all our activities. We report back to them, and turn quarterly we have to report back to the mayor and alderman about what progress we're making. And those things in there are metrics to sort of help us drive that increase in sales tax. We cannot correlate what we do directly to a one-on-one relationship in sales tax increases. It's, sometimes the economy's booming. That's not our credit. Sometimes the economy's going down. That's not our fault. But can we help increase that? And to say to change the fabric or change the sales tax to growth by $6 or $7 million, we're operating on a $524 million in sales in Farragut. That's huge. So we're talking about an incremental increase in sales tax. We should probably get that just sort of natural growth anyway. But can we make that grow a little faster, a little more? Can we participate in garnering a larger store like we did with Costco that generated a significant amount of tax revenue, I think over about $1.1 million a year in revenue to the town? So it's a symbiotic relationship. We got to work together. We got to figure out a way to make it happen. But and that person who's working under the board, they have to do the work. They're spending their time doing it. The rest of us are unpaid volunteers and spending our time and energies, a lot of them, doing a lot of work as well. So
It's just that my concern is, and like I say, I'm not saying don't give any money. That's not my purpose here. It's being good stewards of the town's money and accountability for an employee. That's just the way that I'm looking at it. Either amend it some way to make the accountability more direct, or something of that nature. That's my concern.
Well, I think in the contract it has provisions for, it's a one-year contract. You have provisions for canceling if we're not performing or employees not performing because they're operating under our direction. The other side is we're looking at saying a year from now, if we cannot make an effect, we cannot do it, then we'll want to cancel the contract because we're all sitting on the board and spend a lot of energy and a lot of time that if we don't feel like we're making an impact, we're not going to want to spend all our time doing what we're doing to not to help, not to be contributors to this community, and not to be able to have a scope of responsibility as residents and as business owners to be involved in the process. So I appreciate your comments. So I think
I understand what you're saying about accountability. I get that. I'm sitting here and I'm putting my name on the line for this.
And for the record, I'm not asking you to abstain either. I think
I
you're
understand.
I think you're an honest person.
I'm doing that out of abundance of caution and to not look like, it doesn't look, to me, it doesn't look right. And I got to look at myself in the mirror in the morning. But I know for a fact, we could not do what is here without Allison. If we were to, it was asked of us to not have this would not happen. We could just fold up and go away, because she is the one that coordinates. She's the one that gets that Shop Farragut campaign going. She's the one that does the bulk of the heavy lifting.
Could there not be a town employee then?
Can I make one comment about that, just for clarification? I think there are more accountability measures in this MOU than we put on any employee in the town of Farragut. I think the other thing that you need to realize when you're dealing with an employee from a town perspective, this is a lot easier from the board to terminate this contract than it is to terminate a town employee. So if you wanted to get rid of them tomorrow, you show up to this meeting, have a board, 3-2 vote, and this contract's done. If I have to deal with an employee issue, you're talking about weeks and weeks and weeks of an issue, having to back up information and everything else. So in my mind, it's a lot easier to deal with it this way than it would be to hire it internally and handle it that way.
This is very ambitious, what we're trying to do here, and I'm very excited to see that we are on this track. I think there's a lot of good we can do. Can you put numbers right to it? Can you, with a relationship, we try to do at ICSC, or what I'm trying to do with small businesses? I don't know that you can put a number to it, but it's the effort into it, trying to formalize a process to help our small businesses come in and change that dynamic.
I am a business owner in here.
So I am too, and so I've it's a learning curve that we're on, trying to kind of formalize this process and help smaller businesses. I don't know that you can say that there's a number that you can put to it, but is there value to it? You bet you. There is value to that. Small businesses want to be here, but they see this. We have very high codes and standards, and I don't want to move off those at all. We build our buildings well. They're safe. I knew when my husband and I invested in our structure that we were not putting in good money after bad, because that building was built in the town of Farragut by town of Farragut standards. So, but the people coming in need to understand that we have codes and ordinances, and they need to be, there needs to be a communication there. So that's what I'm looking for. I don't know that you can put a number to it, but I think it's a relationship worth establishing.
I'd like to make a comment. I think after all these months, I'm real excited about this MOU. I think it's one we can all agree on and work with. So I'm excited where we're at. I do have a suggestion under item 5, progress reports. I would, in addition to having a written report to the town staff, I'd like to see that quarterly report presented to the board so that we can discuss your progress, and if there's any questions, bring them up at that time.
I think that was our understanding, that we would make a quarterly report to the board as well as to staff. So
good.
One more point that I would make, and that is that if we decided to do this internally with somewhat one of our employees, there's overhead and all sorts of rules and regulations on how we do our business, and overhead alone would be at least 33 or 40% more than we'd be paying somebody who's not an employee. So keep that in mind. It is cheaper.
I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an employee who's gone through the rigors of opening a business in Farragut like our board has, on multiple levels, from being big boxes to small boxes. So I think what Allison does is quarterback for all of us and gets a lot of the heavy lifting done. But then in turn, a lot of us on the board who've been through the process are talking to people as they come in and say, hey, this is what I dealt with, and this is a way to get through the process, and here's who you need to go see. And that's it's hard for an employee who's never been through doing that kind of stuff to be able to communicate that well too. So you're getting a lot of people for the money that you're paying, I think.
Well, I myself am very grateful for what the Farragut Business Alliance has done for our town, and I appreciate the efforts of Allison and you too, David. And so if there's no further comments, I'm going to make an approval to approve the memorandum between the town of Farragut and the Farragut Business Alliance.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I abstain.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next item is approval of the resolution R-2016-08 fiscal year 2017 fee schedule.
Each year, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen establishes a general fee schedule for necessary fees for town services, including but not limited to applications, filing, licenses, and permit fees. Attached in your packet is the proposed schedule for fees. The changes to the current fee schedule were highlighted, and the descriptions of those, there are two that are added this year. One is the addition of the solicitation permit fee. You guys had just approved that revision in the ordinance in the last meeting, and that fee will be $15. And then we're also adding the records request and copy fees. Those were previously in the ordinance as well, and those were removed when it was revised. And those fees are established by the State of Tennessee Office of Open Records Counsel. So the motion is to approve Resolution R-2016-08 fiscal year, actually that should be 2017 fee schedule.
Allison, are we in pretty much with other surrounding cities around us?
Yes, I sent the fee schedule out to all the department heads, and they review all their line items. And so these are the only two we found that we had not added since then.
But we're pretty much in
Yes, ma'am.
with them, okay. I don't see a problem with this, and so if there's no other comments, I'll make an motion to approve Resolution R 2016. Well, really, would it be 2017?
Be 2017, yes.
2017-08 FY 2017 fee schedule.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item is approval of fiscal year 2017 committee appointments.
Excuse me. As we went through our workshop earlier, I'll read off the names of each committee appointment. The Arts Council is Beverly Hammond, Nancy Wentz, Pamela Ziegler, Sandy Garber, and Seth Nicely. Beautification Committees, Marty Rogers, Marie Leonard, Barbara Allman, Betty Scott, Holly Janney, and T.C. Williams. The Museum Advisory Board is Jack Haynes, Doris Henning, Loretta Bradley, Joyce Moran, and Gordon Michaels. Parks and Athletics Council is Michael Peters, Tim Hill, Debbie Pinchok, Drew Carson, and Valerie DeBow. Personnel Committee is Robert Voigt and Jeffrey Devlin. Plumbing, Gas, and Mechanical Committee is Mark Lauer and Ronald Jones. School Liaison Committee is Tony Carasso, Carla Werner, and Leanne Trotter. Stormwater Advisory Committee is Valerie McFall, Marie Mazzaros, Kenneth Hawkins, and Jay Lee. And the Visual Resources Review Board is Brittany Moore, Dwayne Winkler, and Edwin Anderson.
Do we need a motion to
Yes,
approve
ma'am.
those? Then I'll make that a motion that we approve the FY 2017 committee appointments as read by Allison.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next item is an ordinance, first reading, ordinance 16-11, ordinance to establish the fiscal year 2017 budget for the general fund, State Street Fund, State Street Aid Fund, Capital Investment Fund, Equipment Replacement Fund, and Insurance Fund budgets of the Town of Farragut, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2016, and ending June the 30th, 2017.
Well, once again, Mayor, we've been able to run off everybody at the meeting tonight before our budget presentation, and I know everybody is so excited to hear this tonight. But just in case one person at home is watching on television, I think it's important for them to understand a little of the history of our budget and how we operate, how we work, and what we've gone into to try to make this budget work for our entire year and all the services that we provide to our citizens each and every year. We started this year in January looking at a comprehensive program of what services do we need to provide, what programs do we need to do this year. Sat down and looked at our vision, as always, is the first thing that we do. We talked about our history, our beauty, our high-quality residential choices, activity centers and convenient living, outstanding recreational opportunities and community spirit that make us distinctive. And from that vision, we go into our goals for the year. And we have several goals that we have had the last 5 years of maintaining a financially sound town, strengthening our local economy, developing the town's historic assets, facilitating our future growth, development, and redevelopment, and expanding our leisure amenities. Then we had the mayor and board and the department heads, each in separate meetings, came up with a list of agenda items and work program items that they thought were the most important things to try to get done this year. And based on some sessions that we had with both department heads and the board, we came up with some top priority items this year. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but a couple of the top priority items were alternative revenue sources and looking at those. Obviously, we've heard already tonight, talked about the hall tax going away and the need for additional revenues to make up for that. Also, the Campbell Station Inn master plan has been a big top priority, and we've been working on that diligently as well. Next, we had the management agenda, and under the management agenda, some of the top priorities, we're looking at our stormwater infrastructure analysis. We've got some money in the budget this year to do that plan, as well as looking at our outlet drive corridor development and the strategy for that area as well. So all these things go into making us looking at our budget, and we do that in a fiscally conservative way. We look at our revenue estimates each year and generally anticipate a worst-case scenario for expenditures and hope, and then are very conservative in our revenue estimates. So historically, at the end of every year, our actual revenues have exceeded our estimated expenditures our anticipated revenues have exceeded expenditures each and every year. This year's budget is fiscally sound, and we're able to maintain our current service levels that we have. If you will look at our revenues, if you look at our revenues proposed for FY16 and 17 next year, it's a little over $10 million, which is about a 9.6% increase over our current fiscal year that we're in now. The main thing we get when it comes to revenues is sales tax revenues. We've been very fortunate over the last few years that we've been increasing sales tax revenues each and every year. Currently, in this fiscal year, we're up about 6.7% year-to-date over what we were at this time last year. We're actually proposing a 1% increase for FY17 to a little over $5.65 million next year in our budget. I feel like the economy is stronger, our unemployment rate is low, our CPI has been relatively flat at a little over 1% annual growth, and we're seeing a lot of retail interest in the Farragut market. In fact, we've got some businesses that are coming out of the ground right now, and hopefully will add to our sales tax revenues for next year. The second largest part of our the second largest part of our revenues are state shared taxes. Recently, as the board knows, we just completed a special census. That number of our count for our census count is directly correlated to the revenues we get from state shared taxes. This year, the state's going to give us $123.30 per person. $95 of that $123 goes to the general fund, and the remaining $28 goes to the State Street Aid Fund for road resurfacing. This year, we're looking at an increase in that revenue of about $150,000 to the general fund based on that census count, and also the increase the state's giving us from last year's total per capita as part of the budget. Another revenue generator for us is the hall income tax. Certainly the board's aware that the state legislature approved getting rid of the hall tax by the year 2022. So we have a few years to prepare for this. We always budget conservatively for this tax. The next year is no exception. We're budgeting $375,000. We don't know how it's always based on last year's investment income for the tax year of 2015. I think FY16 was a little bit of an anomaly year. We certainly did an audit and got a few more folks in for the audit purposes. But I think the same year, the city of Knoxville had a really large increase in their hall income tax as well. So we don't anticipate that happening again this year, but we won't get those revenues till I think July or August. So we have to budget conservatively in this area. Next up is wholesale taxes. We get a little over $1 million that we're proposing in mixed drink, wholesale liquor, and wholesale beer taxes. These are conservative estimates. We're anticipating them to remain relatively flat, although, as you heard earlier tonight, a lot of these grocery stores are going to be buying a lot of product this first 6 months of the year or so. So you may actually get a pretty good jump this year in that revenue. We'll just have to wait and see. But we didn't want to be too aggressive on that, so we've budgeted pretty conservatively as a flat, going for flat increase for next year. Next larger one is, or the next revenue source is intergovernmental revenues. We get around $604,000 a year from intergovernmental sources. The two biggest sources of revenue are from the cable TV franchise fees that we collect, as well as the TVA in lieu of taxes that we collect. And again, this has been a pretty stable source of revenue. As the town grows, as more people connect to television, as the television prices increase, then certainly that would help the town in this area. Another one that's very hard to predict each and every year has been building permit and license revenue. You can see the good years and the recession years all built into this table right here. We propose a budget of about $262,000 in revenues next year. We've had roughly 100 new home starts the last couple of years. We feel like this year we're on the same track to be around the same place at the end of this year. We also have a couple of new commercial developments coming out of the ground, and hopefully we'll have more. But I think overall that number is a pretty conservative number for us going into FY17. So if you look at our total revenue sources for all the revenues that we have, 57% of it is directly related to local sales tax revenue. Another 16% is state sales tax that were from the population count, and then the wholesale drink tax makes up 12%. The hall tax used to be 6 or 7% of our income. It's had been dwindling down. They have made legislation the last couple of years to where it's been slowly dwindling, and obviously after this year we'll probably see that start to go down a lot more. Now if you look at our expenditures, next year we're projecting almost $6.8 million in expenditures for FY17. This is actually a decrease of 1.2% from our current fiscal year that we're in 16. And about 2.8% increase over the estimated end of year for 16. Overall, personnel costs are what make up the bulk of our expenditures. Obviously, we're in the service industry. We provide services to the public, and it takes people to provide those services. Roughly $4 million this year is projected to be personnel costs, with a little over $2.79 million in operating costs. Part of those costs, and you can see here, is benefits with 74% salary and 26% benefits. Health insurance this year will be increasing for the first time for employees that it has in 4 years, with about a 2.9% increase. We also have had this year a position reclassification where we had an IT GIS specialist is now just going to do strictly IT only as part of the IT strategic plan. The board heard about it at a workshop last night, and something that we need to do going forward. We're also looking at a 2% merit package for all employees. We're looking at a 5% range adjustment for the bottom and the top of the ranges for all employees and all the different ranges that they may be in, as well as a salary study that we recently completed and looking to implement that as well this year. So all of those are part of that total $4 million budget for personnel costs. If you look at our overall revenues and expenditures, you can see the green is in revenues on this chart, and the brown in expenditures. We've been very fortunate to have obviously a good bit of revenues over expenditures over the last few years. Anything that's left over every year goes directly into the town's general fund balance, and then that also goes to pay for capital projects from our CIP. It goes to pay for equipment replacement plan. as well as our insurance fund and our state street aid fund that we've been supplementing from the general fund for the last few years as well. You can look at those fund balances for each of the other funds I mentioned. State street aid, a little over $1 million as of May. The capital investment fund, a little over $10 million. Insurance fund and the equipment fund of a little over $475,000. So the other programs I wanted to talk about, the other funds I wanted to talk about tonight are the CIP. This is a 5-year CIP, capital investment program. This is a budget that we budget for in the fiscal year that we're in, or coming up, the FY17 budget, is the actual numbers that we're going to plan on spending. Everything in FY18 through 21 are projected, so those numbers could change from year to year depending on what projects we may see, if the costs change, go up or down, or if we decide to add a project or take out a project. So for this year, we're looking at general government projects equaling about $1.3 million. Those include, if you go back, Allison, land acquisition, $500,000 a year that we've been putting away for that. Pedestrian and greenway connectors is also $100,000 that we've been putting away for several years now. And as we come up with projects to either acquire land or pay for, for instance, McPhee park improvements, we'll be taking some of those out of the land acquisition monies that we've been holding back and saving over the last few years. The pedestrian greenways is the same way. As we collect monies and we get a project to do a greenway, then we'll allocate those dollars to go toward that project. We have one next year that we're looking at, the Old Stage Kingston Pike Greenway connection, as well as looking at the Everett Road I-40 Greenway connection to do some work there. We're also looking at replacing the HVAC system here at Town Hall. And then also we have a note payable, the final note payable on the Campbell Station Inn property will be this year. For parks projects, we're looking at a total of about $1.48 million in next year's budget. The first two big projects that we've got going on, one is McPhee Park expansion. This is going to be the design of the new park expansion toward the back. This would be, I guess, phase 3, you could call it. And then the other part would be the third turf field, as well as some lighting and additional parking at Mayor Bob Leonard Park and a restroom facility for about $1.18 million. For engineering projects, we've got a total of $825,000 budgeted for next year. $75,000 of that is to finish up the Watt Road Kingston Pike intersection improvements, which we've been working with TDOT on that project. We've also got $400,000 dedicated for Union Road improvements to do the design on that project. Kingston Pike, Campbell Station Road intersection improvements to add an additional left turn lane to go north onto Campbell Station Road. And then an additional $50,000 for Old Stage Watt Road extension, which we have TDOT completed a couple years ago, but usually we get a bill from them a couple years after the fact. So that's why that money is there, just in case we need to pay for anything regarding that. So overall, the actual dollars allocated into next year's budget is going to be $3,698,750 for the CIP. $3 million of those dollars for revenue-wise is going to come from a transfer from the general fund, $253,750 from land acquisition fund we just talked about, and $820,000 in grants. Okay, keep going. All right, the next fund that we have is the State Street Aid Fund. Again, this is the fund that we do most of our road improvement and paving projects with. You can see this next year that we're projecting around $92,000 more in revenue, and that's due to the census. As we just mentioned a second ago, we do get monies from the state that go directly toward this based on population, so we will have additional revenues to help pave our roads here in town. And then we're also proposing around $500,000 for resurfacing, and our overall ending balance would be around $684,000, with $93,253 of a transfer from the general fund, from the general fund to the State Street Aid Fund, and something we used to have allocated as a road fund internally to the general fund. So that'll be the rest of that money that used to be in that old road fund allocation going into the State Street Aid Fund to pay for repaving. Our equipment replacement fund, we're looking at a $150,000 transfer from the general fund for that this next year. We plan on spending $119,000 on one dump truck, which is very important for us for snow removal, as well as one of our heavy trucks that we've got. And the other one is a John Deere mower that we're going to be replacing. But overall, our ending balance in that account will be almost $700,000 at the end of fiscal year 17. Our final fund is our insurance fund. There's no expenditures to actually put in the budget this year. We don't have anything planned. This is basically for our retirement program that we have. We have to do an actuarial study on this every couple of years. We haven't had to put money in the last 2 years because we've had it fully funded. Certainly if the investments in that change or the economy goes bad and we don't get some money back out of it like we think for our investment income, we may have to add some dollars to it in the future. But that's why that money is in there and continues to stay in there just in case. So with that, those are all the things I had to talk about in the budget tonight. I would like to say that our staff does a great job of helping put this budget together. They really prioritize what they think is important. All the department heads have done a great job in that, and I know Allison's certainly spent a bulk of her time over the last few months getting the budget together, and I really appreciate all of her help as well. So with that, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions, and certainly some department heads are here as well if you have any questions of them.
I have a question on State Street aid. What is traffic calming?
Traffic calming is we have a traffic calming program. If neighbors and neighborhoods elect or want to ask for speed bumps, usually in their subdivision, then we have a whole process that they can go through to request that. We put money in the budget just in case they go through that and it's requested. It doesn't happen very often, but that's why the money is there. So obviously, if that doesn't come to fruition, then those dollars that we have allocated for that would just simply go back into the fund balance.
I have another question for CIP. I notice how we have, and I've asked you this, and I'm just, you know me, I'm going to have to ask a question 3 times before I remember it. Evans Road, we have pushed out 2019, 2020, and 2021. How do we determine the priorities for our road projects? Is that something that's talked about during that February? How do you guys determine the road?
Well, certainly the staff will come in with our list of what we think are top priorities. A couple of years ago, Evans Road was actually ahead of Union Road as a priority. But then I think about 3 years ago, the board of mayor and aldermen elected that Union Road would be a top priority because of its location and some of the development that was trying to go in up there. So we switched those projects and put Union Road ahead of Evans Road. And so that's why it is located where it is today. Certainly during our CIP workshops that we have with the board, if y'all would elect and